This feels like a year for James Madison. They've been quietly under the radar. 31 wins.
Yeah.
They had the nation's longest winning streak at the end of the regular season. They won 13 straight. I love teams that are playing well heading into the tournament. I think that really matters a ton. And they kind of have that Florida Atlantic, like win games, a little bit of a lull, back up, winning a ton of games again, and then Florida Atlantic, obviously, we know the long run that they went on last year. So I think there's something there to be said for it. And we could throw the narrative bet and say, hey, football team didn't get enough love, so damn it, it's time for the basketball team to go out there and get some national attention.
But that's why.
Oh, my bad.
I was just gonna say my biggest question mark on James Madison is really just the fact that they're super trendy. They're a team that everybody.
Yep.
That's the first team that was a double-digit seed that everybody likes to make a little bit of a run. I've even heard people say they think that they could beat the winner of Duke and Vermont.
That didn't happen.
I don't think that happens, but Wisconsin, the thing also about Wisconsin, and I know Wisconsin in general has been boo-boo. Boo-boo in football, boo-boo in basketball, but when they figure it out, they're really scrappy and they hit shots. They're a really good, well, at least in the conference tournament, they're a pretty good shooting team.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they just turned it on. What version of Wisconsin are we going to get? And I guess, when I see every single person talk about JMU, or any team really, it terrifies me.
What scares me about JMU, other than I bet a crappy number, because I bet him at 4.5, thinking if anything this goes down because everybody's picking JMU, is the number actually, even though everybody likes them and they're the trendy dog, that number went up.
Yeah,
Wisconsin's now a 5.5-point favorite. Chucky Hepburn. They got shot makers, like you said.
They do.
If Tyler Wall comes back to life, I don't know where the hell he's been the last 2 weeks of the season. He could be a double-double guy in this tournament. So, and I like Greg Gard. I think he's a pretty good coach. I never trust Wisconsin outside of the Kohl Center, though. I usually don't trust them on neutral floors, but I was wrong in the Big Ten tournament until I actually bet them in the championship game, and then they completely fell apart. But at one point, they had a 10-point lead against Illinois.
Right.
But so, with JMU, I'm just going to take the points, though, and hope for a close game because the money line price just isn't juicy enough for me at plus 195. Even if we move to 2-1, which right now at BetMGM it's plus 195, it's just not really worth it. Whereas going back to, the Illinois game or with McNeese State with some of these dogs, they're 6-1.
Yeah.
So Morehead State, Akron, McNeese State, Oakland, if we even get one of those home,
I
that's
took
plus
every
650.
Calipari has this reputation that's been continuing to drag on. Lots of talent gets bounced early.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game because if Kentucky focuses and plays defense, they're going to win rather easily. But if they don't, this could be like a 95-85 type of game. Oakland's got some offense that'll be really good. I like Greg Kampe as a head coach. Anytime my head coach can moonlight as a guy who works at McDonald's on the side as well, he did that for charity, by the way. I think if Kentucky decides to play defense, it's not going to be a contest. But we've seen Kentucky give up, 80 points to Vanderbilt this year. So I think this one's going to be a high-scoring affair. The Wildcats will probably end up winning, but I would not be surprised if this one's tight in the second half.
Matt, we're going to hear plenty of people say that you can't bet against Izzo in March and death taxes Izzo in March. I'm not doing it with Michigan State, though. They're 19-14 this season. I like Mississippi State. What say you in that matchup? Any play at all or any look, and just your thoughts on Michigan State right now in this tournament?
You're right. This is the time of year where we kind of just go off a pedigree, and that's how, some people have, Arizona and Kentucky and UConn as their Final Four and stuff like that because they hear the name and they're like, oh, they're usually good. Michigan State plays some hideous offense at times. They're a very tough watch. At times they almost are as bad as UVA on offense. My problem is Mississippi State's not exactly glorious either. This is probably going to be a low-scoring, ugly type game that's going to be on the TV in the back corner, and you're just going to kind of every once in a while take a look at it. I would not be surprised if Mississippi State won, and I think there's going to be some value, especially as we get closer, because I think some of the people are just going to be like, oh, Tom Izzo, I'm going to blindly bet on him, which would then present some value for Mississippi State closer to tip-off.
So James Madison is one of the more popular 12-5 upset picks. I know you talked about McNeese State already, but JMU I feel like is getting even more juice maybe than McNeese, depending on certainly where you're looking right now. What do you think of their chances in an upset over Wisconsin? And if they are able to win that, how far can this James Madison team go? They won 31 games this year.
It's funny because I interviewed one of their players today for my show here in Richmond, and they're not afraid of anybody. And it kind of go back to day one. Day one of the college basketball seasons, they went to Michigan State, who, we didn't know was going to be what they are now, and they won in overtime. And I think even more important, a couple days later, they were on a bus going to Kent State. a game that nobody thought they were going to win because they thought they'd be overconfident and they weren't going to be focused. And they won that game in double overtime. And talking to the coach and talking to the players, like, they've dealt with extra attention all season long. So the fact that they're playing a Wisconsin team that, remember, they lost to Rutgers in the early February. They lost to Michigan. Like, no one loses to Michigan this year. And so, like, I understand that they're getting healthier. I understand they're a little deep. But JMU's not going to be intimidated. And I think even if they get down, they have the offense to stay in that game. I think it was 5.5 is the number. That was my very first wager, was taking JMU plus 5.5. I think they can win outright, but I'll certainly take that many points in a game that should be tight.
They're showing Kansas with and without McCullough on the court. On, the net rating is 14.1. Off, negative 3.6. The true shooting percentage goes down. The three-point percentage, of course, goes down. Effective field goal percentage goes down. But I think the net rating is really important when you talk about betting Samford, because that's a 17-point swing.
Yeah. And also, you're not just losing 18 points. He also gives you, 5 rebounds, 4 assists per game, too. So, and Kansas isn't very deep. That was my issue with Kansas all season long.
Yeah.
Even with McCullough healthy, they only go 7 deep. So this is a big injury, and I think that they're going to be on upset watch. Now, I say that and watch, they'll probably roll by 20-plus points and then get beat in the second round. But, yeah, I think this is going to be one of the more popular underdogs for a reason, and I do like Samford, at least with the points. Because I do think Caleb could legitimately be Aaron Rodgers. I'm never comparing anybody to Pat Mahomes, dude.
Yeah.
Mahomes is the greatest of all time.
About Caleb Williams, there's nothing that gives you concern.
To be honest, okay, so the off-script stuff, he's
Under
sometimes
stuff.
that worries me a little bit. But I go back and I watch last year. So 2 years ago we didn't have these worries about Caleb Williams. Last year, the more I watch USC, I'm all the way out on Lincoln Riley. I think he's really lazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he cared about last year. And I think Caleb Williams had to push, he had to force, because they didn't have the run game that they had the year before. And also because they trailed in every game, and that was historically one of the worst defenses in college football history, with a total doofus and Alex Grinch running it. So every game he legitimately had to score 60 points, and towards the end of the season, I think he was just fed up. I think he was pissed off. Do I worry that he cried after the game with his family? No, I actually kind of liked it. I was oh, this guy actually wants to win. He's not just worried about his NIL money. He already knows he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I don't care if he paints his nails. I don't care if he wears a dress. I don't care if he's at Fashion Week. I don't care about any of this stuff. My favorite quarterback in the league thinks the Pope's a lizard person and might run for vice president. You know what I mean? But still, I trust him with the football, and I trust him to go out there and at least get me an MVP.
That is the case in Spurs
yeah, so no, I love Caleb Williams, and I just think, I guess my main concern, where's he going to be drafted? Chicago. Who's your favorite Bear quarterback of all time? Is it Jay Cutler? Is it Jim McMahon? I mean, they're all the same dude. And so that will worry me as he's going to the Boulevard of Broken Dreams for quarterback.